Hey everyone, Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com. Got a little guitar tip for you today. When you're mixing guitars, sometimes you might get some guitars that are really overly bright or maybe a little bit harsh, and it happens. Guitars are notorious, especially distorted, overdriven guitars, for sometimes having a little too much bite in that 2K, 3K range. And what you don't want is a guitar that's too harsh. You want to have that rock, but not too much painful, mind-numbing sharpness, if that is a thing. And typically, I'd grab an EQ and start scooping out stuff, but there's a whole nother way to soften up guitars instead of using EQ. And it's a really fun way, and it's really simple, and it's called using tape saturation. So if you have a tape saturation plugin, emulation plugin, and there are many out there, especially ones that are free, I'm going to show you a free one today. It's a great way to soften some of the bite on a guitar, and it might put the guitar perfectly where it needs to be in the mix without any EQ. Or it might at least get you 80% of the way there, and then you can fine-tune the EQ, and it's a real nice way to work. So here's an example of some guitars that are totally rock and totally fun, but they are a little bit, to me, a little fizzy, a little harsh, and I want to soften them up. So here are the guitars with no EQ or anything on them. Cool. That's just awesome. Great guitars, great performance, but I need to soften them up. So instead of an EQ, I've got all the guitars going through Guitar Bus here. Flip over my mix view. All these tracks in blue, with a couple of green ones here, are all the guitars. They're not all playing at the moment. And they're all bussed through, grouped through this yellow track here. So another great way to work. I'm going to basically process all of them at once. And what I have so far on the guitars is a compressor for sort of leveling out things, but there's nothing helping with that tone. So instead of grabbing EQ, I'm just going to grab a tape saturation plugin. And one of my favorites is Massey's Tape Head. One, because it's free. Literally, you can go to Massey's plugin site and download and use any of his plugins absolutely free forever, no expiration on the demos. The biggest difference with the demos versus the paid versions is a couple of features are left out on the demo version, and there's no recall, which might sound like a bummer, meaning you can change the setting of the plugin, close out your session, open it back up, and the plugin will have reset to its factory default. But this is a real simple thing to fix. I just put notes in the Pro Tools window here and type in what my settings were, and I can easily turn the knobs back where they need to be. Kind of like you had to do with analog gear. Wow, we don't miss those days, do we? So anyway, free plugin, and if you want to buy it, which you probably should if you use it a lot and enjoy it, you can pay a really affordable fee and get the plugin for free. So I'm going to use this one today, but any tape saturation, any analog saturation plugin really will do. They all have a different tonality to them, but they do a similar thing. Watch what happens, okay? Let me bypass it first, so you can hear the guitars as they were, and then I'm going to engage the tape saturation and listen to how the top end changes. Pretty drastic, right? Now, the cool thing about this plugin in particular is that it's a super dark tape saturation plugin, which I love, and then you can bring it up to be a little bit less dark all the way over to bright. So it has a little bit of a tone switch on it to change the tone of it. So here it is completely dark, and then I'll flip through the settings. So maybe we like this one better. It's a little darker, not quite as dark as the normal setting. Let's compare this to the raw guitars. So here's the after, and then I'll flip to the before. it kind of rounds out the tone. So tape saturation, it's a tonal thing. It changes the transients on drums. It changes sort of the top end on guitars and vocals a little bit. So it's a great tool if you have something that's very bright or harsh, and it could be a vocal. A lot of times that happens. A lot of times for me, it's guitars where let's just pass the guitars through this. It'll soften up some of that fizziness, that top end sizzle that's a little too sizzly, a little too harsh, and you might get a smoother but still aggressive sounding guitar. And then if I needed to fine tune with EQ from there, I absolutely could. I could put an EQ right after that. And again, it totally depends on what guitar you have to start with. If your guitar isn't overly bright or harsh, then you don't need tape saturation. But just something for you to think about when you're mixing. Instead of jumping for an EQ, if you have a tape saturation plugin, even Massey's Tapehead, which is free, might be a great option for you. Thanks for tuning in. Quick one today, I know. Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com. If you haven't already subscribed to the mailing list, you need to go over there to therecordingrevolution.com right now. Put in your email address and subscribe for a couple reasons. One, you get a whole bunch of free goodies, great content, ebook, all sorts of extra content that comes your way that I don't post anywhere. And then you'll also get extra tutorials, updates on new stuff. If you like the video today, subscribe here on YouTube as well, and you'll get notified the moment another video goes live. Thanks for the support. Really appreciate it, guys. Go make some great music this week. We'll talk to you soon.